Think about the choices you made today. You likely picked a specific brand of coffee, clicked a targeted ad on your phone, or perhaps agreed to help out a friend who constantly drains your energy. We like to believe every one of those actions is the result of our own rational, independent free will. But underneath that assumption lies a hidden playbook, one explicitly designed to bypass your logical mind and target your subconscious. Persuasion typically relies on a logical argument, a case you are entirely free to accept or reject. Dark psychology, however, utilizes covert tactics to steer your behavior without ever alerting your conscious mind that a choice is being managed. To pull this off, manipulators hack the brain's baseline survival instincts. As we look at the neurological pathways here, we can see they rely on three specific levers: pleasure, pain, and fear. By applying pressure to these basic human drives, a manipulator can predictably steer a target's decisions. Dark psychology operates as a calculated, weaponized science, hiding in the gaps of our daily routines to ensure our reactions remain predictable and controlled. To see this in action, we have to start at the macro level. Covert mass influence operates in plain sight across our media, our advertising, and our political systems. Take neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. It operates on the premise that repetitive, specific phrasing can bypass the conscious mind and rewrite subconscious behavior. You can find these methods heavily utilized in the motivational psychology space by prominent figures like Tony Robbins, who use carefully structured language patterns to drive rapid behavioral changes in their audiences. The delivery mechanism for these messages is often shockingly simple. After just 30 minutes of television, brainwave activity typically flattens into a state resembling deep sleep. With the conscious filter effectively offline, the subconscious remains wide open to incoming suggestions, allowing commercial directives to bypass the critical reasoning we'd normally use to vet them. The infrastructure for this was laid decades ago. In the early 20th century, Edward Bernays, widely recognized as the father of public relations, began testing how to shape mass behavior. He realized that appealing to deep-seated emotional drives was far more effective than pitching factual information. Modern advertisers use this exact logic to weaponize fear. By generating artificial scarcity, slapping a limited-time-only sticker on an abundant product, they induce panic buying. The fear of missing out completely overrides your rational budgeting. Politicians deploy a similar mechanism through the trap of consensus. They consistently frame elections as a choice between the lesser of two evils. Voters are boxed into supporting candidates and funding programs they actively dislike, purely out of terror of the alternative. At the societal level, mass manipulation thrives on a single premise, giving the public the comforting illusion that they are making their own independent choices. But we don't just encounter this on television or at the ballot box. These tactics are scaled down for daily use by coworkers, salespeople, and acquaintances, often starting with a method called the foot-in-the-door technique. You can see the mechanics of it right here. A manipulator starts by securing a tiny, harmless yes, creating a small wedge to keep the door ajar. Once initial compliance is established, they build momentum, sliding in progressively larger and more unreasonable demands until the target is completely overwhelmed. The exact opposite approach works just as well. With the door-in-the-face technique, someone hits you with an absurdly large demand they know you will reject. That initial shock acts as a decoy, making their actual, smaller goal seem like a highly reasonable compromise. Then there is reciprocity. The basic social contract of quid pro quo is routinely weaponized. A manipulator will offer a minor favor purely to secretly build a ledger of guilt. When the time is right, they cash in that manufactured debt to extort a much larger favor in return. These mid-level tactics are highly effective because they exploit our baseline social programming. They take natural human kindness and cooperation and twist them into leverage. This brings us to the bottom of the rabbit hole. Who actively studies and intentionally executes these strategies? In psychology, the most dangerous practitioners exhibit traits belonging to the dark triad. The first profile in this triad is the narcissist. Driven by an insatiable need for absolute validation, they meticulously curate a flawless, entirely fabricated reality. They use this perfect facade as bait, drawing victims into their orbit to feed their ego. Next is the Machiavellian. To a Machiavellian, other human beings are not people, They are puzzle pieces. Every interaction is calculated, and every relationship is viewed strictly as an asset to be exploited for a specific strategic end. We routinely see Machiavellian image curation play out on the global stage. Take George W. Bush. His administration successfully crafted a public perception of a resolute, uncompromising wartime leader, aligning his public brand with a highly specific strategic narrative. Contrast that brand with his successor, Barack Obama, who cultivated an image centered heavily on peace and diplomacy. Yet, if you look at their executive actions, both administrations deployed the exact same strategic tactics, surveillance architectures, and military apparatus to secure their objectives. The outward brand is a carefully constructed mask. The final profile of the triad is the psychopath. They utilize extreme, superficial charm to camouflage a complete biological lack of empathy and remorse. They mimic human emotion to gain trust, making them devastatingly effective predators. When individuals with these traits get close to you, they deploy their ultimate weapon, gaslighting. Gaslighting functions as a systematic, prolonged effort to dismantle a victim's confidence in their own memory and judgment. The manipulator denies reality with such absolute conviction that the victim stops trusting their own mind. Ultimately, this severs the victim's grip on reality entirely, leaving the manipulator as their only remaining source of truth. Dark psychology loses its efficacy the moment its mechanics are brought into conscious awareness. Its power depends entirely on the target remaining unaware that a process is even taking place. You cannot stop the world from trying to influence you. Advertisers will always manufacture scarcity, political campaigns will deal in fear, and toxic individuals leverage your guilt. But understanding the architecture of these tactics acts as a permanent antidote. The moment you recognize a sudden feeling of forced urgency, spot an unnatural display of charm, or catch someone trying to implant self-doubt, you transition from an oblivious target to an informed observer. When it comes to psychological defense, the simplest answer is usually the correct one. If a conversation, a sales pitch, or a relationship constantly feels manipulative, exhausting, and confusing, it almost certainly is. Question the friction in your life. Trust your own instincts. And above all, never allow anyone else to pilot your mind.